Fear Zone channel, your channel of terror. Hello guys, before starting the story, leave a like on the video and subscribe to our channel because we have horror stories every week. And now, let's go to today's video, which is Mr. Adriano, and it happened to him in the city of Batatais, which is in the state of Sao Paulo, and at that time, which was in the year 2012, Mr. Adriano was 37 years old. And it all started like this. At that time that this story happened to me, I lived with my wife and 2 more children in a house on the outskirts of my city, but it so happened that a certain day was that I came home from work very tired, and I went to watch TV, but I ended up sleeping on the couch in the living room, and when it was around 11 o'clock at night, I woke up, and so I went to get a beer in the refrigerator to drink, but to my misfortune, had no more cans of beer, because my wife had already drunk all the beers. But as I was very eager to drink, so I decided to get my car, and after I started the car, I ended up taking the streets of my neighborhood and driving around looking for some bar open to buy drinks, but all bars were closed at that time, and seeing that it was difficult to find a place open, so I decided to enter a lane where there was a gas station that the snack bar worked at dawn. With this, I took this route, entered a rural area of my city, and cutting through this path, I managed to get to the gas station on the road, and by my luck, the snack bar was open. There, I managed to buy my beers, and as soon as I did, I took my way back home, but returned through the countryside again until I reached a dirt road where there was a creek by the side, and it was then that my car started to give problems and ended up stopping on this road. At this point, there was no way I got out of the car in that darkness to see this problem. I looked at the engine of the car, but everything was normal in the car, and with that, I decided to start the car and started to push the vehicle to try to start the car, but while I was trying to do this, I saw through the headlight of my car an animal passing by on the road, which was about 30 meters ahead on the road, and it hid in the bushes near the creek. As soon as I saw this animal, I stopped pushing the car and stood looking at the bush where that animal was hiding. I was scared because that animal that I saw quickly seemed to be a large beast. At that moment, I got inside the car to protect myself and try to see that animal through the bush if it was still around. After a few minutes passed, I didn't find the animal anymore, so I got out of my car because I didn't see any sign of it. So, I took this moment and started to push my car again, and it worked this time, and my car started, so I got into my car, and as soon as I closed the door, however, to my surprise, a furry creature jumped out in front of my car, and this animal looked like I was very afraid because this creature had a glow in its eyes, like 2 lights. This creature had an ugly face, and it growled of hatred at me. As it was just an animal that I had never seen before, I didn't want to run it over, and chose to wait for the creature to go away. But to my astonishment, this creature climbed on top of my car. In my fright, I ended up speeding the vehicle too much, and the creature fell off my car, but that beast got up quickly from the ground, and it started to run away down the road after that. I started chasing this creature with my vehicle down the street, but this animal was very fast. However, I managed to catch up to it, and I closed it with the automobile, and to my surprise the animal got scared and got unbalanced and it fell into the creek, and as I didn't know exactly what kind of animal it was, I stopped the car and kept looking into the creek to get a better view of that animal, and even though it was dark in that place, I could see that creature getting up and leaving the water of the creek, and the animal walked upright like a man, only on 2 legs. I couldn't believe what I was seeing, because to me, that creature was a werewolf. At that instant, my heart seemed to stop in my throat, just by seeing that. creature, and that werewolf kept staring at me and growling at me, and he was breathing fast and scary. I could see that it was going to attack me again, and as my car was already running, I left that place driving the car and praying that my car wouldn't give problems and stop again on the road. Luckily, I didn't have this problem and managed to get home, but I didn't say anything about it to my wife. I kept thinking about this creature all night and how lucky I was not to be attacked by this werewolf while I was pushing the car on the road. Anyway, the day dawned and I went to work at my job, and that werewolf was not out of my thoughts. In the late afternoon, I passed again that place where the werewolf appeared to see if I could find any clue of this creature, but I found nothing. The fact is, I passed by that place on other days too, and after some time, I ended up leaving that story behind and continued my life normally. But 1 month later, after this event, I heard a news report that they had found a dead man near the road where the werewolf attacked me, and that this man had been run over around 3 o'clock in the morning, and that this guy was naked too. Well, I was suspicious of this guy because he died naked and without clothes. Then I thought, because only a man is that turns werewolf, and this guy run over on the road could be werewolf for me, because this suspect could have turned the creature and was run over as a beast, and after he died, he returned in human form. Well, I kept quiet and kept my werewolf story to myself so that no one would know, because people might think that it was me who ran over the guy on the road, and the police would end up coming after me. After this whole story, I have not heard another report of the apparition of this werewolf in my region. But I give a warning, be careful walking in dark and isolated places at dawn, because you run the risk of being attacked by a werewolf. Well guys, thanks for watching the video, and if you like the story, like it and subscribe. Until the next horror video. Fear Zone channel. And now then, let's go to today's story. Well, my name is Lucas, and this story happened to me when I was 21 years old and was in the city of Santa Luzia, which is in the state of Minas Gerais in Brazil, and this story happened in the year 2001. And today I will talk about something terrifying, in which I spent the greatest terror with a creature that came to surround me. And to start the story, I lived on the outskirts of town, and one day, my cousin who lived on the other side of town came to my house to pick me up by car to go to a birthday party at his house, and that then I got in the car and we went together to the party. It was still afternoon, but after about 30 minutes, we arrived at my cousin's residence. I stayed at the party and met some of my relatives too, and the hours passed, and soon it was almost 2 o'clock in the morning, and with that, many of our relatives began to leave the party. I also warned my cousin that I would also leave at that time, because it was already too late for me. Anyway, my cousin agreed to take me to my house, and soon he started the car, and I said goodbye to some relatives, and then I took my way back to my residence by car along with my cousin. But while we were taking the streets, my cousin decided to cut some paths to get faster to my house. He then began to enter very dark places where there were some dirt roads where you could see many oxen and pastures there because it was a rural area. But everything was quiet on that trip until suddenly the headlight of my cousin's car showed a strange thing about 20 meters ahead on the dirt road, and my cousin stopped the car on the spot because there was a very dark and very big animal, and it was pulling a calf that seemed to be dead, and this beast was trying to cross the road. But what happened was that the light from the headlight of the car confused that animal, and that creature ended up leaving that calf dead in the middle of the road where we were passing with the car. But this strange animal that looked like a kind of dog, he ran into the bush that was next to the road and disappeared. We were frightened by this creature because we didn't know what animal it was, and for sure it was a ferocious creature, and also at that time, we didn't know what to do, whether to take the calf off the road or leave that poor animal there. However, my cousin drove a few more meters, and we got close to this calf, and taking a better look, we saw that the calf was still alive, but all hurt, and with this happening, we looked around the bush, and we didn't see any sign of that beast around. With this, my cousin decided to get out of the car, and so did I, because we had to get that calf and drag it to the side of the road, so that we could drive the car along the road, and also so that that animal wouldn't be run over by another car that passed by. But even so, we took the calf by the legs, and we were dragging this animal to the side of the road, and soon we heard a noise on the road, and we got scared, and decided to get back into the car, because we thought that this big black animal could be surrounding us, and hiding, and when we were about to get back into the car, the creature came out from behind the car and attacked my cousin on the side of the road and bit the bar of my cousin's pants, and that creature began to pull him into the bush. At the time I took a fright, because it was a thing of surprise this attack of this beast, because I never thought that this animal was hiding behind the car. But at this moment of terror, while my cousin was being dragged by that enraged animal, I started to give several kicks and punches in the head of this strange creature, in which, soon, the beast felt the blows, and ended up releasing my cousin, and at that instant, my cousin got up quickly from the ground, and we quickly got into the car, and that black creature that was very large, came running and hit the car door, but to our luck the door was closed. Finally, my cousin started to start the car, but the creature, to our amazement, stood up, and stood on two legs like a man, and that to my surprise, put his clawed hands on the car handle, and managed to open the car door, but my cousin was quick and managed to close the door, and to me it was clear that this animal was a werewolf. But after this moment of terror, my cousin started the car, and getting out of that place, then I was looking at that werewolf, who was still standing for a little while there on the road, and that scary creature had a very bright glow coming from his eyes, which made it look more macabre. But after all this terror, I was more relieved that we had managed to escape from that werewolf. As soon as we arrived at my house, I asked my cousin to spend that dawn at my residence, because I had a bad feeling that something worse might happen if my cousin returned to his house, and he was afraid and stayed at my house. We spent the early hours of the morning talking about the werewolf event, and how this creature could even exist, that we had only heard of, and only seen in movies, and talked about the intelligence of this beast, that it hid behind the car, and attack us by surprise, and also that the werewolf opened the car door. But after that day, I went back to my normal life, but when I imagined that werewolf, and the scene of terror that I spent that day, already gave me fear, but it was only that too, because fortunately, the neighborhood where I lived had many houses and lampposts, and the streets were all paved, and I did not worry much with that creature, because hardly a werewolf would prowl around here. But surprisingly, one day, I met a street dweller from my neighborhood at the bar, and he was telling people that he saw, at a certain dawn, a creature that looked like a black dog, going through the garbage at a supermarket in my neighborhood, but he still claimed that this animal was standing, walking like a person, and the street dweller said that when he saw that creature, the beast was on its back, and as the beast couldn't see him, this walker left the place hiding, and for this reason. He only slept near the emergency room, because it was safer, because in my neighborhood, the creature that he saw could meet him at dawn, and that would be the end of him. But I kept thinking, how could I be wrong about this creature, because this werewolf can appear even in well-populated neighborhoods, and by the description that this homeless man spoke of the creature was the same description of the werewolf that attacked my cousin on the road, and also by the fact, if true the beggar, the werewolf stays in the woods at dawn, but also sometimes can get in very populated places, as neighborhood for example. Of course people took in jest what this homeless man said, but the fact is that I saw this creature. After a few days, I looked for this homeless man to hear something new about the creature, but he also did not see anything else at dawn. But what remained for me is that werewolves exist and are able to mount a clever attack, and that was my story. Before we go to the next horror story, if you liked the story, leave your like and subscribe to the channel. Fear Zone Channel, your horror channel. Good evening everyone, and welcome to our channel. And now then, let's go to the scary story today, which is a police officer who is still on active duty. Well, and as being military I will preserve my name, not to bring trouble in my corporation, but this haunted story happened to me in the city of Santa Maria, and at that time I was 38 years old, and was in the year 2012 that all this occurred. And today, I'm going to tell you about something scary, in which I lived, and it was an experience with a strange creature, but a tragedy happened, and it was revealed what this creature really was. And it all started like this. I was in the police car with my partner, doing a patrol around 2 o'clock in the morning, in a neighborhood in my city. However, the radio of the police central told us that was for us to go in a butcher shop in town, because there was a report that someone had entered this trade. So, me and my police partner got the address of the place, and we were on our way to this butcher shop, which is a type of market that only sells meat, to solve this problem. By the time we arrived at the place, we were already prepared for action, and began to look around the butcher shop carefully, because it could be a bandit, and we heard a noise inside the butcher shop, and with that we ordered the person to surrender, but we had no answers. But to my surprise, I looked at the steel door of the butcher shop, and saw many scuff marks that would have been made by some large animal. Anyway, at that moment, the owner of the butcher shop arrived on the scene, and he said that there were no such scuff marks on the door. However, the owner of the butcher opened the door of his shop a little, and we threw the flashlight inside the butcher shop, but then we heard some footsteps of someone running inside the shop, but to our surprise something hit very hard on the doorframe and made a big noise. But I noticed by the light of the flashlight that it was a large animal which would be trapped inside this trade. I and my police colleague, we were interested to know what kind of animal was, and tried to see it by flashlight, the light under the door, but the creature again hit the door hard and growling with rage. My partner said that this beast was trying to attack us. Well, I looked under the door, but left the flashlight off, but to my surprise, the beast was standing on 2 legs, and its eyes had a glow like lights. I called my partner to look, and he saw the creature. He looked at me with an amazed face, and told me it was a werewolf. The fact is that we didn't know what to do, but it was good to catch this creature fast, so that no one would see it. But at this time we heard a noise inside the butcher shop, as if the werewolf was breaking several things, so we looked fast, but the creature had already fled the place, leaving through some place on the roof, because the roof of the butcher shop had a big hole, and for sure, that's where the creature fled. At that moment, we went around the street to find this werewolf, and when we saw this creature, this werewolf was already on 4 legs and running a lot, and it was already far away from us. My partner and I got in our police car to follow and try to catch the beast, because it was dangerous that this monster was loose out there. And also, we told the shopkeeper not to say anything about this story to anyone, because the police corporation doesn't like this kind of supernatural occurrence, and this could bring many problems and many explanations to give to the police. After this, we started to make rounds with the police car through the region, looking for the werewolf, and we passed some dirt roads, but nothing more happened, and it was like this until dawn, and we didn't see this creature again. But the hours went by, and soon the day dawned, and our workday ended. When we arrived at the police station, we made a report of the day, explaining what happened, that some kind of large animal entered a meat market, and when we arrived at the store, the animal had already escaped. The fact was that the police delegate gave us weapons to capture this creature, like sleeping guns and hunting nets, and that we were not supposed to kill the animal. Anyway, for some time we were still looking for clues about the werewolf, but it disappeared without a trace. Some years later, after this werewolf case, I told this werewolf story to a police officer friend, and to my surprise, he told me something amazing, that he and his partner shot with their guns a strange creature that tried to attack them at dawn, and the animal ended up dying, and they saw that this beast was very bizarre, because he had a man's body, but his legs and head were the same as a dog's, and this policeman friend of mine said that when they went to bury the creature in a grave, to hide the body of the animal, this creature began to modify and became a man, and with this fright, he and his partner finished burying this dead man, and kept this macabre secret, because they could not explain this tragedy to the authorities. After this impressive conversation, I really realized that werewolves exist, and are cursed people, and maybe there can even be other macabre creatures, like vampires and other beings. I do not doubt these creatures, and werewolves exist, and attack people, and that was my real horror story. Well, if you liked the story, subscribe to the channel and leave your like. Until the next werewolf story. The Fear Zone channel, your channel of terror. Good evening everyone, and now we go to today's story, which is from Mr. Mario, and this happened to him in the city of Nova Odessa, which is in the state of Sao Paulo, and was in the year 2003, when Mr. Mario was 21 years old. And today, I will tell you something unforgettable that I lived in my life, because the werewolf that I saw was doing his evil deeds in my town. And it all starts like this. I live in a village in the rural area, which is far from the city center. But a certain time of year, there was a corn harvest in my city, where several people came from all states and cities of Brazil to work in these plantations. But then the harvest season began, and a few months went by. But it was also the time for the June festival, and there was a big event in a place near my neighborhood, where several workers who harvested corn also came to have fun at this festival. The fact is, I went to this party with my cousin and his friend, and we three were having fun all night at this party. But not long after, my cousin got into a fight with a guy at this event, and my friend helped my cousin to beat up a lot this stranger, and I saw that they could kill this man. I stopped the fight, and after that we left, not to get more trouble. The next day, we went back to our normal lives, but I learned that the guy who was beaten by my cousin worked as a corn picker, and his face was all swollen and bruised. However, as soon as about 2 weeks passed, I was amazed by something that happened in my village, because my friend, who helped my cousin beat up the stranger at the party, was allegedly killed by a large animal on a dirt road near our neighborhood, and when he was returning from his work at night, an animal attacked him viciously, taking his life. After that, a month passed and my cousin told me that he saw an animal that was hiding in a vacant lot in front of his house, and he suspected that it could have been this beast that killed our friend on the road. Well, with all this story, the people in my neighborhood were afraid to go out during the day or at night in the village because of this beast. the fact is, the police and the fire department stayed a few days after this animal that killed my friend, but the military and the fire department found nothing. But to my surprise, what I learned in this search for the beast is that the corn picker that we fought about at the party, the police had taken him to the police station because they caught him walking through the woods at dawn, and that he was suspected of taking clothes from the clotheslines of the houses. Well, after a while, the harvest season was over, and the harvesters had already returned to their towns, and my cousin was still scared of the beast that he had seen the other day in the bush, but he told me that he had not seen this animal again, and my cousin also said that this beast was not a normal animal because he had a glow in his eyes that was scary for anyone, and his appearance was like a monkey and dog mixed together. I got a little pensive in this story if this creature had something to do with my friend who died attacked by a strange animal. Well, almost 6 months passed, and the corn harvest started again in my town, and with it the harvest workers, a few of them began to appear around my neighborhood. One night I was in a bar drinking, and soon I saw that the guy who fought with my friend and my cousin last year at the party, and this man was drinking at a table in the bar, and I noticed that sometimes this guy looked at me in a strange way, as if he already knew me from somewhere. Anyway, when it was already dark, the bar closed, and my cousin and I left together to our homes, and started walking through some dirt roads in our neighborhood. However, when we arrived at my house, my cousin took another street and was walking alone through the dirt road to his residence. I soon opened my gate, but suddenly I heard someone running down the street, and it was my cousin. He was running away from something, and then a creature came running after my cousin down the street, and it was a weird big animal, but luckily for him, I opened my gate quickly, and my cousin managed to escape by entering my house, and I quickly closed my gate, and just as I was about to pass the chains to lock my gate, surprisingly, that beast arrived in front of the house running, and soon. This being already stood up and stood on 2 legs, even standing, like a person, and to my surprise, this creature began to pull my gate with his hands to open it, and this beast growled of rage at me, trying to intimidate me, and he swung my gate with great fury, and I also held the gate for the creature not to enter the house. But soon my cousin appeared holding a wooden handle, and gave several strokes in the hands of the creature, in which the beast released his hands from my gate. At that moment this monster began to roll on the ground and growled in pain, and it was scary the noises that this werewolf made, but then, this beast got up, and ran on foot down the street growling with noises of suffering, and it went into the woods and disappeared. At this, I took advantage and closed my gate quickly with the chains and padlock. My cousin and I entered my house, and we watched to see if the creature was around, but we saw nothing. I took a machete to defend myself, in case the creature decided to come back and try to enter my residence, and my cousin was even more afraid because I didn't have a firearm at home. My cousin told me that it was this beast that had appeared in front of his house last year, and that maybe it was this werewolf that killed our friend on the road as well. In all this conversation, time went by, and I came to the conclusion that this animal was a werewolf. For this creature stood upright, and his body was like a man's from the waist up, but his legs were a little crooked back, like an animal's, and his head was like a dog's, with big pointed ears, and although his face looked like a man's, this werewolf had a mouth like a dog's, and with the dark hair on his body this beast had a macabre and scary appearance. Anyway, we stayed up all night, and the werewolf did not appear, but also this creature took a blow to his hands with the wooden handle when he tried to open the gate, and this werewolf must have been very injured. And I, and my cousin, did not understand what was happening, that this beast was trying to catch us, because it was the second time that my cousin saw this beast. Well, the fact is, the day dawned, I went to work normally, and so when it was time for lunch, I went to the pharmacy to buy medicine for a headache, because I had not slept well, because the werewolf had disturbed my sleep. But to my surprise, when I arrived at the door of the pharmacy, that corn picker who had fought with my cousin, and he was making a huge bandage on his 2 hands, with the help of the pharmacist, and it seemed to be a serious injury. However, this man saw me there on the counter, and this stranger disguised himself quickly, and got a scared look on his face as if he owed me something, and I realized this, because he was quite amazed to see me. But then, it hit me, because I immediately thought that he was the suspect of being the werewolf that attacked us at dawn, because of the bandages on his hands, which is where my cousin hurt the werewolf, and I also thought that he was getting back at our friend, because he got beaten at the party, and tried to get my cousin for helping to beat him. This suspect quickly left the pharmacy and disappeared down the street. Then I warned my cousin about the situation and the danger we were in. We soon started to patrol the town looking for the suspect, but we didn't see this man anywhere else. And the other days, we learned that he was away from his work, and the other workers said that this guy left town before the harvest season was over. But a few years have passed, and the werewolf no longer appeared in my neighborhood, but still, when it happens new harvests of corn in my town, I am worried that the guy who fought with my cousin back, and if he appears someday, I'll be very smart, because the werewolf can appear again too, and want to finish his revenge. Well folks, thanks for watching the video, and if you like it, subscribe to the channel to receive new werewolf stories. See you next time.